What's going on, everyone? It's King Tuts Pro. Welcome back to another Final Cut Pro 10 tutorial. In today's video, I want to show you 7 really cool new effects for 2022. Alright guys, so the first effect is going to be the cloning effect. It's so easy to do. Ideally, you want this to be with a solid background. So if you have like a studio or a kind of like a area that has a lot of a solid background, this will make the editing so much easier. So what you want to do is go into the video that you want to clone. Let's go ahead and sample. I want to sample this right here, and it looks so cool. So of course, this does require maybe a drone shot or a crane to get this shot, but just make sure that the whole entire video is filled with some type of solid color or background. It will make the masking so much easier. So since this is a white background and they're pretty much silhouetting with their clothes and everything, press Command B. And I wanted to sample just before his legs cut off. Hold Option and drag upwards to make a copy of that same clip. Then what you want to do is go over to the effects, go down to masks, and then add a draw mask onto that copied clip that you just duplicated. Then you're going to select the clip and go over to the area that you want to mask out. So we're going to click here, and then maybe here. It doesn't have to be exact because the background is fairly solid, so we can easily luma key that out. So this is our selection, and if we press V on your keyboard, this will disable it and you can see the mask. Now if there's not a lot of movement, you can just leave the mask how it is, but if it shifts a little bit, like if Kanye and Pusha T move out of the frame, then what you can do is go over to transform. Just make sure you're on the actual draw mask, so select the draw mask, go over to control points and add a keyframe there. Go to transform and add a keyframe next to position. So from here, what you're going to do is just go frame by frame, and they're mostly in the shot. You might have to move it a little bit. So now you can see we kind of animated that really quickly. So if I push play, it'll look like this. Now all we got to do is go to transform and then just move them out of the position. So now you can see where this mask is, so we can easily feather that. So go to the draw mask, click off of it, and just go to the feather section, and then just drag the slider to the left or to the right. Dragging it to the right will kind of feather it outwards, and if we drag it inwards, it will feather it inwards. So I like personally feathering it inwards, so just so we don't see that line. Perfect. So now it'll look like this. And what we can do is just make a bunch of clones. In this case, we're going to hold Option and drag upwards. So once you've done that, go to transform and then just move them over like something like this maybe. And now if I push play, it'll look like this. And you can offset them if you want it to come in at different times. So you can do something like this, or maybe you can delay it to get a different look. Let's go ahead and move on to the second effect. Alright guys, so the second effect is going to be a really cool kind of dollar bill transition. So this is going to be currency, or a type of currency transition. So it's really easy. What you want to do is go over to either go on Google or just Yahoo, whatever you want to use, and Google like, dollar bill or $100 bill if you're in the US, and then you go to Wikipedia because it is public domain. It's just a PNG image. Make sure it's a PNG. And then what you want to do is just drag this image above the video in your timeline. Once we have it in the timeline, I'm going to adjust its length to however long we want the effect to last. And this is really long, so I'm going to shrink this down or trim it down. And what I want to do is go over to transform. Because it's a PNG image, you don't see the background. So I'm going to zoom out of here and go to 50%. And we want to be able to see the outside. So if you have the newest version of Final Cut, just enable the transparency grid. If you don't have the latest version, it'll look like this, but you can still see the box. But I personally like it with the transparency grid. So I'm going to drag this over to the top left, a little bit more to the bottom though, because we do want to cover most of the video. So we're going to go about here. I'm going to start this off like this, and then I want it to flip and turn. So once it ends, it's going to be on the other side. So it's going to be kind of flipped. So we're going to add a keyframe over here, and then we're going to go to all the way to the very end, go one frame to the left. And you're going to click and drag. You're going to notice a red line. So kind of move this over here. And they're going to rotate this the other way. So now it'll kind of look like this. So if I push play, it'll kind of turn. And maybe I want it to turn even more. The more you turn it, the faster the animation. as you can see. And if you think it's too slow, you can go over to show video animation, move the last keyframe closer to the first one. So now it'll go by a lot quicker. So that's what I want to do. And you also want to make sure that this covers most of the screen. So what we can do is about halfway. So once it's about here, we're going to go to scale. We're going to scale this up quite a bit. Now you can scale it all the way up, but it'll look a little bit crazy. So if I go back, it'll look kind of like that. And maybe that could look cool. So I'm actually going to leave it. And then it's going to zoom back down. So I want this to zoom back down a little bit quicker. So let's see what that will look like. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, a total of 4 frames really. And you can play around with the speed by adjusting where this is located. So I think that's fine. So now what I want to do is go to the blur. So we're going to go to effects, and before we add a blur, we're going to right click and go to new compounds clip. We're going to do money, then go to directional blur. You can then move the arrow to make it blurry. So I'm going to follow the direction that it's moving in. So move the playhead at the beginning, add a keyframe next to amount and angle, and then kind of play around with this. Maybe go like that. And it's so smooth and easy to do. So now that we have that though, we got to move the middle of this in the middle or in between 2 clips. So just drag it over. And now if I push play, it'll look just like that. I also made one already ready for you guys to use. It's pre-made. In this one though, it's a little bit easier to use and there's more bills to it. So, and I'm going to click and drag this right in between the clips. And then you're done. So that's all you got to do. So it's really that easy. So if I push play, it'll look just like that. And the cool thing about this, you can speed this up. So press Command R and then just bring this in. So if I push play, it'll look just like that. So check this one out. It's in the description of this video at the very top. All right, guys. So the third effect is going to be this super cool tape reveal kind of transition or effect. You can kind of use it as a mixture of both really. So what you want to do is go into the timeline and then go to a section where you want to use this effect. So in this case, it works better on people or objects. So what I'm going to do is make a selection of him and use it as a transition from this clip to this one. So what you can do is go to where this clip begins and you want to make your cut where you want this effect to last. So from here to here, which is roughly about 1 second long. And then what you want to do is move the playhead at the beginning and we're going to go over to edit. We're going to go down to add freeze frame, zoom out, pressing Command minus, and then now you have this really long image. So just decrease the length and then drag it upwards and move it to the left a couple of frames. And then from here, you're going to then move the end of this clip. You're going to match it to the beginning. So now it should kind of look something like this. So from here, I'm going to extend it about this long maybe. And then what I want to do is go to the effects, go down to masks, add a draw mask onto that freeze frame clip, which should just be an image. Then what you want to do is we're going to pretty much do the draw mask, but in reverse. So instead of adding it all at once, we're going to do this as we go. So what we're going to do is go to transform, add a keyframe next to control points. Then we're just going to add like 4 points. So maybe here, maybe here. Okay. And then finish off the path. So now it should look like this. Now that's what you want it to look like. So then all you're going to do is go 2 frames over to the right. So go 1, 2. You're going to add a keyframe next to control points. Then you're going to move 1 keyframe over to the right 1 time. So 1 time there. And then what you're going to do is drag this keyframe over, or you can add another point, which is what I'm going to do. So in between those 2 points on that line, right click and go to add point to add another point and then move it here. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. So add a point and then you can move around to see where it's at. So we'll go about here. So now you can see that it creates this really cool cutout effect, which is what you want. So on this frame here with the keyframe, you want to go 2 frames over to the right. So you want to do the same exact thing. So 1, 2, add a keyframe, go 1 frame over to the right, and then you want to add 2 more points. So just right click, add point, and then we're going to move this one here over here. So add a point, something like that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So I think here is fine, maybe like that actually. So once we have that, we're going to go back and push play. It is going to start off first like this, or you could start it from the, from the very bottom and then work your way up. I think that's fine though. Then what we're going to do is go over to our project manager and go to the PNG image of the tape here. It's duct tape. You can just go on Google and look up duct tape PNG. Just drag this above your clip. You want to trim it, so press Command B and delete the rest. And then we're gonna go over to transform and then just rotate this and bring it down, decrease the size. And we're gonna do something like this, maybe not too big, something like kind of like that. And I think that looks good. So from here, what I want to do is add a keyframe over here and then do the same exact thing. So go 2 frames over. You're gonna add a keyframe next to position, then go 1 frame over to the right, and then you're gonna move this up. The reason we do that is so it doesn't create an animation between these 2 points. We want it to just skip a frame. This one, we're gonna 1, 2, add a keyframe, go up, and then move it like that. If I go back and push play, you're gonna see it looks just like this, and I'm going to then trim it actually, and then move this over, so like that. So now when I push play, it'll animate just like that, as you can see. I'm gonna move this 1 frame over to the left. There we go, that fixed the issue. So now if I go back and push play, it's gonna create that really cool tape effect, which is what we want. Let's move on to the 4th effect. Alright guys, so the 4th effect is going to be this super cool shake zigzag effect, and it's really easy to do. All you gotta do is just make 2 cuts, right? Make sure it's a reasonable length, right? Hold Option and drag upwards. Go over to the effects, and we're gonna go down to masks, go to draw mask, and drag that onto that top clip. Then we're gonna move the playhead at the beginning. I'm gonna click and drag to make this a nice curve on his face, so something like this. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Then you're gonna go over to control points, add a keyframe next to that, and then you're gonna go under transform and add a keyframe next to position. So once you're here, what you're gonna do is go 1 keyframe over to the right, press right on the arrow key, click and drag the mask, and move it as you need to make sure that our artist's face is fitting inside of this mask. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can skip a couple frames for a smoother look. So here's what it looks like. Now what I want to do is go over to all under video, go to search and type in trails, and we're going to drag the trails kind of preset, which is built into Final Cut. Just drag this onto that clip here. Now if I push play, it's going to look something like this. So cool. Now you're going to notice here though that very harsh edges, and you can easily fix that by going over to the draw mask, and I like to click off of it and go to feather and then actually feather this inwards or outwards. I'm going to feather it outwards. I might want to adjust the trail so you can adjust the duration. Oh, that's way better. And perfect. There we go. That is how it is done. So very easy to do and really takes no more than 5 minutes. So let's move on to the next effect. Alright guys, so this effect is going to be more of an overlay type of effect transition. If you want to use it as a transition, you definitely can. Now this does come from my overlays pack, which I will leave down in the description if you guys choose to get it. I definitely highly recommend you guys do. It saves so much time. It also has grain too, so kind of makes your video look a lot more vintage. So I'm going to click and drag this. It's a video you just literally overlay onto your clips. This also works in Premiere Pro, After Effects, I believe Sony Vegas, Filmora, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, and many other editing programs where you can overlay and change the blend modes. So in this case, I'm going to drag this here, and I wanted to place it right in between this shot here where that clip changes. So I'm going to press M to add a marker, and I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to change the blend mode of this clip to say screen or lighten. I'm going to go to screen, maybe lighten, I think, to lower the effects a bit, and you're gonna see now it looks just like that. Look how insane that looks. So let's move on to the next effect. Alright guys, so this effect is honestly one of my favorite ones from this video, and it's going to be a flying close patch transition or effect. You can use it either or if you want it as an effect or as a transition. So I want to use this more as an effect. So what I want to do for this is pretty much it's going to animate from the bottom and go up back to his original, or the original position of the patch. Actually make a copy, so hold Option and drag upwards, and this will duplicate the clip. Then what we want to do is go down to the masks, add a draw mask, and then from here make sure it's at the beginning, or you can skip a couple frames if you don't want it to start right away. I'm going to skip maybe 2, 3. We'll go 3 frames. And then I want to make a selection around it. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Once we're here, we're gonna go over to the inspector tab, and I'm gonna go, and if I disable the bottom clip, you're gonna see that we have our patch selected, and I wanna feather that. So I'm gonna click back on the clip, go to feather, and feather this outwards or inwards. I'm gonna feather this inwards. So that's what we want. Now we're gonna go back and re-enable the clip, press V. We're gonna go over to control points, add a keyframe, and go next to transforms and go to position and add one there. Then go frame by frame, moving this so that it is inside of the mask we just made. Once you've keyframed this, the mask, so that it stays within that draw mask on that freeze frame, we're gonna go over to transform, and you're gonna add a keyframe right here where it begins. And then what you're gonna do is go to the y-axis. This controls up and down, just drag it downwards until you can't see it out of the frame. Then go to the end, go 1 frame to the left, go to the y-axis and type in 0 and press enter. Now it goes back to the exact same spot. Really, really cool. So now what we can do is adjust the speed. So right click on the video, go to show video animation. You can see all the points, but what we're really wanting to look at is the transform. So just drag that inwards for a faster effect. You can do something like that. That looks pretty cool. Now, once you have this though, we want to make this a little bit more unique. So instead of it just going like that, we can spice it up by going over to the effects, going to all and typing in trails. So we're going to drag that onto the top clip there. You're going to go down to trails, and you're going to notice though that we already have the effect that we want, which is this really cool kind of ghosting effect. Alright guys, so the last effect is going to be this super cool and insane locked on effect. And the cool thing about this is we can duplicate the edges to make it look seamless. Here, press Command B, and about here, press Command B. So now we're working with this clip here. Now what we're going to do though is, I don't like, for me personally, black bars on the sides. So I'm going to go to transform, I'm going to go to crop and click crop, and this will crop it to the resolution over here to whatever you have that on. So if you have 4K 16:9, it'll do 4K 16:9. Or if you have a square, this will crop it to a square. So just FYI. And click done, and this will crop it. So now we can go back to transform, and now we don't have the rest of the video on the edge. So now that we have that, we're going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to go to transform, go to view, click the down arrow, and you're going to go down to overlays, and you're going to have show horizon. Click on that, and this will show you the center of this frame. So what we're going to do is zoom in, and I want to lock on the effect in the middle of his face as much as we can. So we're going to just move this right over here. This is where we want it to start. So add a keyframe, use the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard, click and drag this and move it back into the center of this line. So press right on the arrow key, shift it as you need to, skip a couple frames if it doesn't move, and we're just repositioning this whenever the his face moves out of the middle of this horizon line. Alright guys, so I just finished, and you can see all the keyframes we did. So if I push play, you're going to see his nose stays for the most part in the middle of the horizon line, which is what we want. But you're also going to notice that there is, if I go back to fit here, a bunch of black edges and bars on the sides, which is not what we want. So right click on the video and go to new compounds clip, and then just name this, like, I'm going to name this last effect. Click OK. Now we can go back to the effects and add the collider title. So once you do that, you can see now it fills it up completely. So we're going to move this all the way to the edge. Well, not quite. We're going to actually move it about here, just to hide the black bars throughout the whole video. And we don't have to manage any of the keyframing. And then here we can move it down to as much as we need to hide the black bars. You're going to create this super sick effect. It's like a mirrored effect. Now what we can do is go over to the effects, go over to blur, and you're going to go to radio. You can do radio blur or zoom blur. I'm going to go with zoom blur. So drag that on there, and we're going to invert the mask. So we're going to add a mask first. So add a shape mask, click add shape mask. We've got to invert this. So go to the masks next to zoom view masks. You're going to see this little icon. Click on that. You're going to hit invert masks. So now we can move this outer ring to change the feather, the size, and now you have this super sick kind of blurred edge effect. So now you can go here and adjust the swirl, and now you have this super cool kind of blurry spiral effect. It almost looks like a fisheye effect. Be sure to comment down below, leave a like, subscribe. We're almost to 300,000 subscribers, which is absolutely nuts. If we can reach 300K by the end of the year, I will definitely be doing a big giveaway. So be sure to share this out to any of your friends who need a tutorial for editing, and be sure to check out my pack down below. With that being said, I'll catch you on my next video. Peace.